Hey guys, what's up? It's RetroPie Tutorials, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install RetroPie on your Raspberry Pi 4. So we're just going to need some things. Make sure you have these handy before you get started. We're going to need a Raspberry Pi 4, obviously, with its power supply. We're going to need a monitor and an HDMI cable, an SD card. I'll be using 64 gigabyte, and the SD card adapter. You're going to need a keyboard and a controller. The controller, obviously, for setting up, but the keyboard can help with configuration when you need to type some things. And then we're going to need, on the software side, 7-zip for extracting some zips, and a Raspberry Pi imager, which is used to flash the SD card with the Raspberry Pi operating system. So I'll head over first. I'll just show you the links. So depending if you have a 64-bit or 32-bit computer, you're going to need to download 7-zip. Raspberry Pi imager can be found here. Just hit download for Windows. And then here's RetroPie, where you're going to want to download this. So when you hit the download page, it's going to look like this. And you just want to get it for the Raspberry Pi 4. I advise you to read the documentation. There's a lot of good stuff here that could help you out. Some basic knowledge about emulation, what ROMs are, what the BIOS is, and then we can continue on to some other cool stuff like installation and getting started. So in the installation, we're right now focusing on, so I already told you the hardware breakdown, what you're going to need. Then, so the first step we're going to have to do after downloading the OS is to extract it. So I'll go ahead and install 7-zip. I already have it downloaded here. I'll install that for you guys. And then we're going to be able to use 7-zip to 7-zip file manager. So we're going to be able to open what we just downloaded. Let's see, we could probably right click on it, open with 7-zip. And then here's our image. So we want to just take out this image and extract it. So that's going to take a bit of time. I'll fast forward it. Okay, now that you have the OS extracted, this is the image file you have here. We're going to want to install the imager. So the Raspberry Pi imager, I showed you the link before. It was just here. So you want to download this. This is going to be very useful for installing it onto your SD card. So we're going to want to install the imager right now. And I'll fast forward. Okay, now that the imager is installed, you can plug in your SD card and run the imager. You should see it pop up here. So we want to choose our OS, and we want to browse from our computer, right? So we'll just click use custom, and it's in our downloads right here. And we want to choose SD card, obviously. This is our SD card. And you want to hit right. This is going to flash the RetroPie operating system onto your SD card. So it's going to erase the SD card, so make sure you have everything backed up before doing this, or you'll lose everything on the SD card. So just a big warning there, make sure this is an empty SD card and that you don't care if your data gets wiped. So I'll start it started and I'll fast forward it. Alright, so we just finished installing the Raspberry Pi RetroPie OS onto our SD card. So this is what it looks like after it finished. So we can just click continue here. and we're ready to go. So this is all you need from your computer at this point. Now I'm gonna take out the SD card and put it into the Raspberry Pi. I'll show you that on camera, and I'll show you how to set up your RetroPie for the first time using a controller. And then I'll go over some basic configurations with a keyboard. So as you see here, we have our Raspberry Pi 4, and we have our SD card right here inside of our adapter, so we can take that out real quick. 64 gigabyte. We're gonna flip over our Raspberry Pi and insert it in this back slot. So this slot is where your SD card will go. So I'm just gonna put that in gently and make sure that it's tight, just like that. Okay, great. Now that's done, we can plug in our power supply. So we have a Type-C power supply on the Raspberry 4, so just hook that up, just like that, nice and tight there. And now we're going to add some more things. So here's where the HDMI source goes. I usually use the first one. It uses a micro HDMI, so make sure you have a cable for that. It usually comes with a package that you would buy on Amazon. I bought a package with a case and everything. That's our PS4 controller, so we'll be using that on setup, and you're going to want to hook those up. So I'll just show you how to hook that up. Your PS4 controller has a USB, and I usually use the USB 3.0, which is the blue one, and I'll just plug that in. I don't think it matters if you use a 2.0. So now my controller is plugged in from my PS4 controller to the Raspberry Pi. Okay, switching over to the micro HDMI, it looks like that beside the power. Again, make sure it's firmly placed inside there, just like that. And that's it for now. Maybe later we can plug in a keyboard for setup. Now we're just going to power on our Raspberry Pi with the button, and you'll see the lights flashing up there. So this is what it's going to look like when you power it on for the first time. You may see the monitor flash a couple of times, some weird colors, and then it will go down to some logs, display of the services running in the background. So that may take a bit of time. I'm just going to fix the zoom. And this is what it looks like. Again, it's going to go back to some logs. It might not happen the same for everyone, but it takes just a couple of seconds and we should be up and running. And there we go. Now it's probably going to start the emulation station, and we're going to set up our controller. So we already have our PS4 controller plugged in, as you can see here. And I'm just going to hold the X button, and it's going to tell me to press up, down, left, right, start, select, east, south, northwest, L1, R1, L2, R2, and then thumbs, and then left, up, down, left, right, and then the right, up, down, left, right, and then I use the PS button as the hotkey. And then I'll just press the circle to hit OK, and our controller's set up perfectly. Sorry, I just want to turn on the light because it looks better, I think. So we're going to enable some configurations just to make it easier while setting up. So go down to the Raspberry config there and hit X. I recommend using a keyboard when you're in this configuration since it's easier. So I'll switch over to my keyboard. You can plug it in the same way as your USB for the controller. So go down to number 3, which is interface options, I believe. And hit OK on that. And then go down to SSH and
hit enter and enable it. This is really useful when setting up games. You can transfer over your network instead of using a USB. And then when you're done, just hit finish. Okay, now we're back on the main configuration page. We're going to go down to Wi-Fi and set up our Wi-Fi. So it's going to ask to select a country. So that's the first thing we're going to do. So just go ahead and follow these steps and just choose a country. I'm going to select my country over here. Once you select your country, just go ahead and go back, and then it's going to ask to reboot. So we'll just wait a couple of seconds for that to reboot. Okay, great. Now let's go down and set up the Wi-Fi. So it's we're gonna add a new Wi-Fi registration. So hit that and choose your Wi-Fi access point. Type in your password, again using a keyboard. And then once you have your password, hit enter. It might take a couple of seconds to load for that. And there you go. So now you're connected to a Wi-Fi. One thing you do want to take note of is the IP address of that Raspberry Pi on the network. So just have a look there, and as you see, mine is 192.168.2.105. So keep yours handy. Okay, so now we're back on our computer, and I'm going to show you how to connect your RetroPie from your computer. So this can be used for transferring games or just other SSH commands if you're familiar with Linux. But if you're just a beginner, try first of all to ping your Raspberry Pi using command prompt. So I go ping, then 192.168.2.105, and as you see here, I have my response. So that's great. If you don't have a response, try debugging that by making sure that your Pi is on the same network as your computer. Next up, we want to download FileZilla. So go ahead and Google that and just download a client called FileZilla. I already have it downloaded here, so I'm just going to install it. I'll hit next. Wait a couple of seconds. And I'll just keep pushing through that. And it's going to install. Great. Now we will launch FileZilla. Just like that. I'll hit OK. So over here, you're going to want to type your IP address. So this is the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. The username is Pi, the password is Raspberry, and you want to connect to port 22. As you see here, after you're connected, here is your SD card directory on the Raspberry Pi. Here are all your games, where you'd put them under each folder for each specific emulator. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be making more tutorials. Bye.